Hi, this is Jessica Mays, Infusionsoft certified consultant and owner of Mays Consulting Group. Today I want to show you how you can modify data in your Infusionsoft application. So to give you some context around this, very often you will find that you have information in your contact records that you want to move around. So a very common thing that I see, let me go into contacts and show you. Something very common that I see is people will accidentally put, say, the phone number of a list they're importing into this field right here. So when you're matching up, because during import you have to match the columns in your spreadsheet to fields in Infusionsoft, and very often people will match their telephone number column on their spreadsheet to the phone number type field, and that would put the phone number right here. So in a situation like that, and it doesn't have to be that particular situation, but that's a really common example. Another one could be perhaps the email is sitting in the wrong field. To have emails go out of Infusionsoft, say you were to send out a broadcast or you were to send out emails through Campaign Builder, they typically are grabbing for the primary email address. I say typically because you certainly could set it up a different way, but generally speaking, we use this email address that I've highlighted as the email that is pushing out. And so sometimes you will find that you've got an import done, and maybe a couple weeks will go by, and you'll discover all the email addresses are sitting here in email address 2 or email address 3, and you want to get that information moved over. Now, the common thing to do is just delete the database and do it all over again. And certainly that's an option when it's an option. And what I mean by that is sometimes we don't discover that we have information in incorrect fields until we've been using our system for a while. So if you have email history, tag history, you've been making tasks and notes and all sorts of things, deleting the database is not an option. And so I don't want you to think that you have to one by one go through your fields, go through your contact records and update these contacts. This is what you can do. You can go ahead and modify your data, and I'm going to show you how. So there's a few steps involved here. The first thing would be to grab your list of contacts. So if you don't have your entire list right in front of you, an easy way to get it is to click the Start Over button once you're in Contacts and just do a search with no criteria. If you do a search with no criteria, it'll bring up the entire list. So I'm in one of my sandbox applications, and we just have 34 records in here. So this is my entire list. Your list may be a lot bigger. Whatever. You could even just do a specific tag of people, whatever you need to do. Bring up your list of contacts where you have data that needs to be modified. Now this Actions button right here, tons of things that you can do via this drop-down menu. All very self-explanatory. I would encourage you to take time to review this list. If you have never done so, you will find some cool things that you can do in bulk to a list of names in Infusionsoft. So what we would do in this scenario is we would export the information. Now, when you click Export on that drop-down, you come to this page, and you will notice everything is checkmarked. This, I'm going fast, but there's nothing you really need to take note of here. I'll just tell you, this is every field in the contact records. So as we scroll down, passing through every single field that occupies the contact area of your database. And so you certainly can pull them all out, but you probably don't need all of the fields. What you need is just a few of them. So let's do a nice example. So first of all, I click the checkbox next to title because it unchecks everything. And then I immediately checkbox ID. Now this is very important. If you're multitasking while you're listening to this, stop what you're doing, and you have to hear this part because it's very, very important. When you're modifying data, you have to have the Infusionsoft ID out on your spreadsheet. It's a not negotiable, because if you don't have the ID out there, when we put the information back into Infusionsoft, it will create new records rather than modify the existing ones. It relies on that ID to match up this information when we're putting it back in. So this is critical, and you have to do that. So in the example that I gave earlier before we hopped into this part, I was talking about sometimes the phone number gets placed into the phone type field. So I'm going to pull out the phone number, and I'm going to pull out the phone type. And I actually think my data is correct, so it doesn't really need to be fixed, but I can just show you, because this is a very common one. You might find this helpful, and certainly the concept can be applied to fixing any data in your records. So I would want to bring out the ID, where the information is and is not supposed to be, and where I want the information to go. Okay, so scroll down to the bottom. All sorts of self-explanatory things, questions that you have to answer, what format you want, what you want to do. Just open a spreadsheet, or if you want to email it to somebody. I always grab a CSV because that's what I need to put to when I put the data back in, and I just open it. I don't send it to anybody. So let's go ahead and click process. You always get this pop-up telling you to be patient. Go ahead and click OK, and it never takes very long. So let's go ahead and open this up. Oops. All right, so here's the data. So the very important field of the Infusionsoft ID, telephone number, and the type. And then very often, like I said, this will be sitting here. Okay, so you can do one of two things. You can either literally grab all the data and put it in the correct column, or you can just rename the columns. So I can go like this. Cut, paste, and then we need this one just to be called phone 1. Okay. All right. All right, so what we would do is once we have the spreadsheet just the way we want it, the fields fixed, so to speak, we would go ahead and save as a CSV. And then once we're done saving, another very important part of the process will be coming up. Yes, it's a big to-do to save CSV files for some reason. Okay, let's do this. All right, so that was part 1, is to export your data. So go into Contacts, click the Actions button, export your information. You must bring out the Infusionsoft ID and then bring out whatever fields you want or need to bring out to spreadsheet. Go ahead and make your modifications. Do not mess with that Infusionsoft ID column. Save the CSV with the updated information. And now, this is kind of the grand finale. We're going to put the information back in. So if you've never done this before, you're just used to importing your data. You click on Import Data, and in it goes. We do not do that here. We go to Data Cleanup, and then we have Modify Existing Records. And then it looks very similar to the import process, but it's actually updating your information. So we go out and we grab the spreadsheet, and we match just like you're probably used to doing. You want to make sure everything's matching up correctly. So Infusionsoft ID, Infusionsoft ID. Phone type, phone type, phone 1, phone number. Sweet. Let's take one more peek. This particular one doesn't have a phone number. That's why it's so sparse. This one does. I know that this says work and this is the phone number, so I'm happy. All right, so now I know we're good to go, so it's going to go ahead and put this information back into Infusionsoft. Awesome. So that's it. So what you would do is determine what needs to be fixed. And I just isolated one situation. You perhaps have lots of things that you need to fix in the database. You know, maybe the last name is sitting in the first name field, and the first name is sitting in the last name field, and perhaps the primary email address is in email 2 or 3, and you need to get it over to the primary email address. Perhaps the phone number got put into the wrong field. Whatever it is, you can pull that information out to spreadsheet, get everything fixed, and then put the data back in and just update the existing records rather than create new ones.